right, good morning, everybody. Good afternoon for those in the East Coast. Thanks for joining our webinar, Challenging the Status Quo, Law Firm Innovation. I am very pleased to have Paul Sperry here. He's going to be our speaker for today. Paul Sperry is wonderful. He's a wonderful human being, a wonderful leader. He's the CEO and founder of IVIONICS. It's an information and technology management firm. And Paul has tons of experience guiding firms through a modernization process and innovation. He has a proven track record of driving innovation, operational excellence, and business growth for all his clients and people that he works with. So Paul has a ton of experience. He has great insights on how to innovate and adopt technology for your firm. And so we're very happy to have Paul here presenting today. And I will pretty much give the floor to Paul, and then he can get started and walk you guys through some of his amazing insights. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Thank you, Diana. I appreciate the introduction, and welcome everyone. I'm happy to be here today and discuss a topic that's of great interest to me, which is challenging the status quo and really looking at law firm innovations. I'll kind of set the stage a little bit and saying my definition of innovation sometimes is slightly different from other people. When you look at innovation, I look at it as in two different parts. One is the impractical and the other is the practical. The impractical is the things that haven't been done before, going out there and really being super cutting edge. And AI is a perfect example that's prevalent in all of our minds and doing some amazing things with artificial intelligence. And the other side is the practical side, which is what I call advancing the status quo, which is really just bringing about change, things that have been done before others have kind of led the way. So you're not the pioneer in that. But when it comes to legal in particular, who's pretty, I'm going to say, resistant to change is probably a nice friendly way of saying that. It's really more the direction that law firms are akin to is saying, hey, we're not going to be the first. We just want to go out there and just bring about the positive change that's going to work well for us. So that's just a quick disclaimer on that. So so the agenda today is going to be really looking in and saying why challenge the status quo. We're going to do that. We're going to look at some trends. I'm going to give you some examples, what other firms are doing, just kind of some of the things you're probably already aware of, but hopefully if we put it into the right content, it'll kind of resonate a little bit better with you. And then we'll get into assessing risk of not doing anything. How do you kind of compare the benefits of innovating versus the risk of not doing anything? Is either one of those prevalent enough to get you to say we really need to make some changes? We'll talk about some of the more strategic innovations, and what are the factors that are triggering those. I'm going to get into a scenario. We're going to go through kind of what does a solution look like. We're going to walk you through an implementation and kind of give you a little bit more of a deeper dive, kind of the insights as to really what's involved when you decide you are going to make a change. It's not like you just flip a switch and write a check and it's done. There's a lot of moving parts to that. So I want to kind of share some of that with you. So, kind of before you move in that direction, what you're getting yourself into. And then we'll kind of wrap up with some takeaways and some next steps and things of that nature. So, I hope this is valuable information. I hope it gets you to think maybe differently about technology in your law firm than you have in the past. Really kind of get the thoughts going. So if that sounds good, we'll get started. So quick introduction, even though Diana, you did a nice job. That's me, Paul Sperry, president of IVIONICS. Went to Polytech Institute many moons ago, which has now become New York, NYU. Coming out of college, I started IVIONICS. I had a taste of working in corporate America. I worked for American Express for about a year and a half while I was in school and really had a disdain for corporate life, and it just wasn't a fit for me and my friend and I, who went to college, high school together, college together. we decided we were going to hide out from reality. We're just going to go off and do some kind of cool, fun tech stuff, and it evolved into IVIONICS, into the company that we have today. So I've been doing legal tech for close to 40 years, believe it or not. I don't like to believe that, but that is the truer form of what it is. I've seen, a lot of change obviously go on in the industry. And there's a lot of value to kind of looking back at what that is. And we'll go through some of that, today. So the core of who I am is I'm kind of I call it an information nut. I've always fascinated as how information is being used in today's digital economy, and how it continues to grow exponentially in value. It's being used in a lot of different ways, good ways and not so good ways. But to me, I always look at that and saying, if it's managed well, it's going to be a game changer. And that's something that I've always kind of focused on. My contact information is there for anybody that would want to reach out if you have questions after this that we don't get to answer, or if you just want to commiserate about working with attorneys, I'm there for that too. So either way, feedback is always welcome. And as we go through this today, I'm going to try and ask you for some of your feedback as we move along. So IVIONICS, what is IVIONICS? We're an information technology management firm. We have three core areas of competency. One is tech ops, technical operations, where we're providing a variety of different support services, but it goes beyond that, and just making sure that things are being managed properly. Technology evolved, but no one really knew it had to be managed. It's not like operations where people are like, yeah, we need someone to manage our operations. Well, you do need someone to manage the technology that's in your office, and sometimes it's always not being done the right way, and that's that group and that team that does that. Pierre Radicki, who's been with us for quite some time, he's been in the industry as long as I have, just about, and he heads up that team. He's really exceptional when it comes to that. Our security team is headed up by Wayne Marino. Wayne is a CISSP. He's uber smart when it comes to security. He's as smart as they come when you look at people in the industry, providing those types of services. So he's great. And I actually head up the innovations team, which it's nice when you own your own business. You can pick and choose what you want to do. That's the fun side to me. That's where you're bringing about positive change. You're making customers happy, and you're really seeing, the results of your efforts. So that's where I get kind of a sense of accomplishment from, and really what I enjoy the most. But at the end of the day, we're driven by really one mission, and that's to allow lawyers to spend their time practicing law and getting them to strengthen their client relationships, because that's what this is really all about. That's why we're here, and the things that we do all should be geared towards that particular goal in line. So I'm going to ask a quick poll just as we kind of get ourselves going here, which is, where are you in your law firm? Are you of the, we are moving forward with change because we see that there's things that we're not doing, there's efficiencies, things that we can change to the betterment of the firm? Or are you sitting and saying, we're status quo, everything works, we don't need to change anything, everything is fine, and we don't see any issues with that? So Diana, if you could throw that poll out, and I'd just like to kind of get from the audience, where they stand as they view kind of, technology innovations within their firm. So.
Yep. Surveys out. We have 91% yes, implementing or planning to implement, and then a 9% no.
All right. Well, there's a strong statement there. So that's great. That's the audience we want to talk to, is those that are interested in making change, and even those that are not, may be able to glean some insights as to what can be done, what's practical, and what's the next step. So just also, I'm going to use some terminology when we talk to the types of law firms that that we work with. So we predominantly work with, firms that are, 350 attorneys on down, so we look at the legal industry, and we kind of segment it out into, there's small, which are firms with less than 10 employees. There's, mid-small, which is 11 to about 40 attorneys. and then the mid-size, which is 41 to 200, and then the 200 plus. So the bigger firms, so those small, mid-size and mid-smalls are the ones that, we really kind of have the most expertise in. And most of the information I'm going to share with you today is really geared towards that. It's not geared to the larger firms. So there's folks from very large firms may not be as relevant information. So hold on one second. There we go. All right, so let's look at evolution, right? So, what kind of has transpired, in the legal tech arena. So this goes way, way back. I don't laugh. So, I just use it as a point in time, as saying, in the 1800s, there's, law being conducted, and how is it being conducted? And predominantly it's not stone and chisel back then, it's paper and typewriters, almost 90 years later, there's the dictaphone, comes out, which was a huge investment, so instead of, taking handwritten notes, you can actually talk into a device and you can hand it off to your secretary. So here I kind of separated this, the document generation aspect and document management into two areas. Those are the responsibilities of the legal secretary, and those are the responsibility of the attorney. So, just kind of breaking it out. And the reason I do this is, as you'll see, as things go on, everything was kind of sitting on the secretary's desk. They were the ones that were doing all the work. The attorneys just were practicing law, which is what they wanted to do, right? They go to law school to practice law, and they don't want to be bothered with, technology and administrative things. So, big change came in 1976 when the Wang word processor came out. All of a sudden that was just a huge game changer. It only lasted for about 10 years until all of a sudden, the PC revolution began, and WordPerfect was, running, which used to run on a Data General computer, is now running on a PC, and that became the de facto word processing system that they had. Later in 1989, Microsoft launches Word, and all of a sudden, they think they're going to crush the market and they're going to put WordPerfect into business. The reality is it never happened. And the reason it didn't was that everybody became so acclimated to working with WordPerfect. WordPerfect was so synergistic to the Wang word processing system that even though there was maybe better technology that was out there, because of the product that was known, there wasn't any really significant change. So it's an interesting thing to see as that relates to how we look at things, look at new technology, moving forward. But the big change to me came in like the 1990s timeframe, right on up until today. And that's really just a constant advancement of software and hardware, both in a kind of back and forth fashion. But new applications were coming to the market, very quickly. Back in 1987, actually, CompareWrite, if those of you remember that, it's kind of one of the first comparison products out there, that was launched. Document management systems became the standard. World Docs was out there, and iManage and NetDocs. So NetDocs actually was much later than that, but iManage was an earlier adopter to that, which again had many different names and gyrations, and there's others as well. But the point here is that we continue to advance, but the advancement now is becoming the responsibility of the attorney. The attorney needs to become aware. They need to be trained on what these applications are, what they do, and how to work with them. And there's been resistance to that, right? Older attorneys, it's not the way I used to do it. I don't want to continue doing that. I'll have someone else do it. And they throw it back on a secretary, paralegal, or other people within the firm. But that's changing. If we look at most firms today, the ratio of secretaries to attorneys is drastically different. It used to be 1-to-1, and now it's maybe 1-to-5 or 1-to-10. So it's a pretty big difference that we're seeing out there. What does this mean? This means that lawyers have to really step up, and they have to start learning how to start leveraging these products, because they're out there for driving efficiencies, but if they're not using them, there's no purpose to it. So the ones that are more prevalent today that I believe are the ones that are really making a difference in law firms are really in these four categories, and that's document automation, contract management, document management collaboration, and then Microsoft Copilot. Document automation is, there's been hot docs, has been out there for a very long time. It's a great tool. If you're using it, you probably will never want to move away from it. We've got some hot docs, customers that are starting to see some challenges and limitations. And then like a Net Documents, for example, is getting in the game, and they're coming out with Pattern Builder Max, which is their AI-based tool for doing document automation. So you're seeing now that AI is coming into multiple factors, and that's going to be the common theme through what we discussed today. But there's a perfect example of they're new to the market. They're really pushing hard to try and get some attraction to their product. I think it's got some limitations. I think it's a good product, but it's a disjointed product from where the data resides. If the data was to sit in there, or is it fully integrated into like a practice management product like a Centerbase, then it's a home run. But we're still seeing some of the challenges of being able to show those integrations or complete those integrations and so on. Contract management, another AI product. We're seeing that in a couple of different products that are out there, and that's really pulling out all the pertinent information associated with the agreements that they're creating and putting it into a database or a task management system that could provide the reminders and updates as far as things that need to be followed up on. So things aren't being missed, which is hugely important for law firms. And the evolution of the document management systems continues, so they keep getting better and offering more things. However, interesting enough is I'm starting to see some really good document management functionality in some of the practice management systems today that make you question whether you need to spend the extra money on a NetDocs or an iManage. A lot of the law firms in the mid-size and the mid to small size are really looking at Microsoft Copilot as a means for drafting documents. Is that something that we can? Many of them are having their own internal, proof of concepts, kind of testing and validating those products. So it's something, if you're not looking at it, I strongly advise you to look at it, at least do your own proof of concept in-house. So on the communication side, I'll run through this kind of quickly, just, the old rotary phones to the desktop phones to the fax machines. And, for those that, haven't, been doing this as long as I have, I remember phones were the most critical device in their office. If a phone system went down, everything stopped. It's just, and then you became so dependent on the fax because that was the most critical device. That goes away. Then you're dependent on voicemail. You're checking your voicemail multiple times a day. That goes away. Then it becomes emails. And even now emails aren't as prevalent today as you see with the use of the cell phones. So everybody's using their cell phones now in order to be able to communicate and have, the ability to stay in touch with their office, with the clients and other parties. But the real advancement in all of this is really with the onset of COVID. And that's with, some of the, products, Zooms, the Teams, the unified communication platforms that are being established out there, so it started off as video conferencing and then continued to advance, from there. And I think what we're seeing now is, the ability to have one application to hopefully simplify all the different products that are out there, make it easier for the attorneys to work in an environment where everything is kind of centralized. So they can go out there and they can get access to their video conferencing, they can message some teams, they could do their voice now. So, a lot of companies, a lot of firms are moving from their VoIP phone systems over to Teams or Zoom, for that matter, as the primary, carrier for their video and for the audio. One of the things I'll just kind of share with you that is becoming of interest is, I'll use Teams as an example, is so within Teams, you can create teams. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but so you can create teams, and within Teams, underneath the team is you set up multiple breakdowns, which are called channels, and then each channel has its own set of tabs. And so we're working with a couple of firms, and I found, like I said, I found it interesting in that we're actually using the teams for each client, and each channel is a matter underneath the client. And then we're setting up the tabs for them so they are able to kind of use it as a really basic, kind of matter management, functionality. So there's a lot of things that these products can do. And the question is whether you're really kind of leveraging them, taking advantage of them as best as you can, So anyway, something to be mindful of, and something you're probably already, working with. You may not be working with it in that way. So when it comes to evolution, when it comes to that, case management and e-discovery are the areas, to me, that we're seeing the most significant change. Again, back in the day, there was the law libraries, and the attorneys lived there, right? They're always going back and forth, pulling out case law and different things that they needed to leverage. And I don't think there's many law libraries left, and if there are, I don't think people use them. So we went through a cycle then of taking everything that was on paper, we started digitizing it and trying to figure out how do we share this and how do we exchange data and documents with other firms, and all the challenges associated with that. The war rooms, where if you had a case going on, you basically take your half your office and you move it down there, servers, printers, all the different things that you need in order to be able to have a remote site to work and to do trial prep and everything else that you need. And all of that is gone, right? So none of this really exists. Everything kind of today, most of the documents, they're born digital. You very rarely do you get a paper copy. If you do, you quickly scan it, it's digital, and the paper copy kind of goes away. The war rooms are simplified in the sense that all you need is internet connections and some laptops, and you have access to all the data that you want. But the evolution, to me, is coming in a couple different areas. There's three here that I'll kind of point out. Docketing, which has been around for quite some time, so it's not new, but it's becoming more paramount because people are starting to say, hey, you know what? We really need to do a better job, tracking our schedules and making sure that we're in compliant and keeping up to date with all the court changes and things. So how are we going to do that? And there's some really great products out there. Again, these are some of the examples I'm leaving here, which is the Law Toolbox. BEC Legal Systems has had their product out for quite some time. And then eDockets, which is now an Aderant product, was rebranded as Milano. So good products, good things to take a look at if you're not doing docketing. I definitely recommend how you're managing your calendars, are you staying in compliant, and what is needed in those areas. On the research side, again, here's an area, another AI influenced, where you're really seeing, some, I think, significant advancements in both Westlaw and LexisNexis research products, as far as how they're leveraging AI. I'm going to show you a quick example after this, as far as what that looks like. And then e-discovery. So e-discovery has been this hugely advancing area. There's a lot of different products out there. Relativity seems to be kind of the top product when you talk to most people. That's the go-to. But there's a lot of other really good products out there, way less expensive, just as capable as a Relativity. But again, another AI. All these e-discovery products are really leveraging generative AI in the sense that they're able to go out there and do document reviews in fractions of the amount of time it would take for paralegals and others to do that work. So there's a really significant time savings with that. So this may be old news to many, because this has been going on for more than a year now. But definitely some areas that I would say, if you're looking for some efficiencies, those are some areas to look at. So what is practical law? This is the Thomson Reuters product. So what does it look like? I just took a quick screenshot here just to share that with you. And really what it is, just like any generative AI tool, which if you're familiar with, like ChatGPT or Gemini or any of the products that are out there, it's command-based, right? So you're going to go in there and you're going to say, here, ask it a question. But the part about it is you can keep refining the data set, right? So here's a safe way. You're using its research that you're doing, and You're not using, it's not touching any of the firm data, so there's no compliance issues associated with that. There's minimum risk that you have. And you're able to go in there and you're able to keep, honing in to find exactly, what case law you're looking for, So the challenge with this is, again, is training the person to do this. If it's going to be an attorney, is getting them the right knowledge and training to be able to use tools like this. Sometimes paralegals are starting to now become more focused on this because they realize that some of their work is being replaced. They're not doing as much research assignments outside of this or document reviews. So the more acclimated they become, they could be a good person within the firm to be spearheaded to do these types of things. On Relativity One, which is their e-discovery product, it's very similar to what we just saw with the Practical One product. So really another great use of AI. Again, the ability to save tremendous amounts of time in the document review process. So it's something that you can come in here. Again, you got to get acclimated to these things. One of the things that we hear is it's great, but we struggle with, really kind of getting it to be as useful as we think we can, so. We'll mix up on that
Paul, we
one.
have a question. I don't know
Sure.
if you want to take it now or wait until
Yeah.
the end.
Happy to do it. Yeah.
Question is, doing things faster, quicker, and easier is great. How do you obtain a ROI for the additional expense?
It's a good question. I'm going to ask that we hold that one because we're going to get to that. Okay. So we're going to talk to that because I think there's a lot behind that mentality of it's faster, better, right? So remind me or I'll remind myself when we get there. So thank you. Little mix up on this slide. So practice management system. So I'm going to just kind of pop through this, kind of quickly here. So we've got these legacy systems, kind of just want to kind of set the stage of where we're at, right? So there's the juris and the time slips and all the different products that have been, on the desktop for a very long period of time and still are, right? These things haven't gone away. It's not as if they're old and they've been completely replaced. However, they are being replaced. And the reason for that is there's, kind of the onset of newer and better products, which are some of these SaaS-based applications that we mentioned, and Centerbase, the Smokeball, and the ones that you're probably heard many times. The big difference here is the old legacy software made you do things the way that they did them. You conformed to their workflow processes. You weren't able to go out there and say, hey, our firm works in this fashion, and we want to make sure that we can continue to do that. Well, you're limited when you get into some of these older products. You can create custom reports and you have some variation of, some custom fields. But for the most part, you conform, you do business the way they want you to do business, not the way that you want to do business with your firm. In products, and I'll use Centerbase, as an example, that, you go into a product like Centerbase and you can customize the workflows, custom fields, screens, however you want to look at the data. You have the ability to be able to configure the system in a way that conforms to that. And that's really the game changer. And really what drives a lot of people to change from some of these legacy products, to some of these, better SaaS-based offerings, with the exception of, yes, it's accessible anywhere, which is huge to get away from working in a, with Citrix or with terminal services or any of the other, remote access applications that you have. There's some really great capabilities that come along with that, so and that's something that's really kind of driving that change. And we're starting to see, on the onset of COVID, there was a lot of interest, wanted to move to the cloud. But now I want to move to the cloud, but I want to do more. It's our software today is so limiting in what it can do. Other areas that we're seeing a lot of interest is in e-payments and automated time capture. And that are, two that I think are, if you're not doing either one of those, you should be doing both, or at least looking into what both of those have to offer, to the firm. I think that would be just a quick takeaway, from this, is just being able to make it easy for your customers to pay you and automated time capture. We're going to get into that a little bit more as I kind of go through a scenario that I think would kind of give you a better sense of how all this comes together. So the legal desktop, there's a lot there. It's complicated, many different applications. I kind of posed the question, do you know how many applications there are on your legal desktop? Most firms, it's around 8. Some of them are as high as 15 or 16 different applications, legal applications that they work with on a regular basis, sitting on the desktop. And those things go from some of these, core applications, Microsoft Office, which everybody has, your collaboration video conferencing, which is your Teams and Zoom, practice management software, and all the components built up with this. I made a little check mark next to the ones that are AI kind of initiatives, right? These are things that AI is really starting to change the capabilities of these functions. So these are just some of those examples. These are the other supportive applications that go along with this. We talked about the research and the e-discovery. Contract management also has an AI initiative to that as well. So this just tells you all of this stuff is what sits on the desktop, is what lawyers, need to know how to work with, or people in the firm at least, in order to take advantage of it. So it's something that I keep repeating as we go through this, but I think it's a really important concept to understand, is when you start getting into what's involved in bringing about a change, you really be mindful of the fact that it's all about the lawyer's adoption of that than it is anything else. So I'm going to take a quick pause here and just have another technology question that I'm going to kind of pose to you. And I know, Diane, I don't know if we can get through all of these, but I like to at least hit the first one, which is technology considered strategic, or is it considered an expense? Is it a cost of doing business, or is it, something in between? How is it really perceived at your firm? And while you're answering that, I'm going to run through these other ones because I think we're going to get tight on time with some of the other things that I want to go through. So some of the other things that are of interest, and again, you can pose these questions to others at your firm, just so you have a better sense for what the response is for these. And one of them is how technology advanced is your firm on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being cutting edge, really like taking full advantage of technology, and 1 being we just switched from typewriters to something else type of thing, right? So, and then the others are, do you have a roadmap? Do you have a technology roadmap? Do you have a technology budget? And how do these types of decisions get made? So those are things that really kind of set the stage to really determine, are you in a good position to take advantage of some of these offerings that are out there, to evaluate them, to assess them, and to determine the impact that they would have on the firm. So,
And as we get the survey results, so 61% says it's hybrid, so it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Then 30% say it's strategic, and then the remaining 9% say it's an expense.
Okay. All right. That's about what I typically see when I kind of put that question out there. So interesting. So thank you for that. Hold on one second. When we do these surveys, it seems to kind of throw this off. There you go. Okay. So why make a change, right? Don't change for the sake of change. There's got to be a driver. There's got to be a reason, behind that, So, so I always start when you're, in that decision process, you're considering that. I always go back to the Pareto rule, which is the 80-20 rule, and you've probably heard of it in different capacities, where 80% of the effort should be coming from 80% of the the results should be coming from 20% of the effort, right? That's really what you want to get to, and that not always being the case, or the value versus the cost, and so on. And the reason I do this is because there's a lot of applications that are on the desktop today, or in your law firm environment, that just aren't being used right. There's so much more capability that's there look at it and determine, can you get it to do the things that you need to do before you say, let's throw it out, let's just go with something new, is look at that and saying, yeah, it's as bad as we think it is, or it's really not, and it can be something that we can work with. So that, is the first part when considering change. The other aspect of it, which are going to be the kind of operational drivers behind that, these are the things that are kind of dictating more of that change, right? Is that the product doesn't have those capabilities, and you need to move on from there, or you see some really great products or better ways of doing things, great features rather, in other products. Or again, like I said, you hate Citrix, you really want to get away from that. That may be, like, that could be enough. In my mind, I've seen that, and I know the challenges associated with that. So I fully support, if you're in that situation and you want to move to something else. Maybe you're in the midstream of your cloud journey. Maybe it's something that, hey, we're moving that direction. Our backups went to the cloud, our emails in the cloud. We just moved our document management to the cloud. Now what's next? We really want to kind of get away from, this hybrid environment, and we want to move on to something else. Sometimes it's end of life, with some of the products, the pro law announcement and some of the other things that are out there. That's going to drive you, kind of force your hand into making some of these decisions. Sometimes it's just the support's horrible. We can't work with this company. It's just too frustrating, and we need to find something else. And there are times too that it's a security related issue, is that, really they're not compliant. They're not, SOC 1, SOC 2, whatever the compliance is that you either need or is being dictated that you need to have, or it's just something you're not comfortable with because you think there's inherent risk, with that. So some of the more strategic drivers, behind this, these are the four most common ones that are out there. And the first one is talent attraction and retention. And this is one that, I was at ILTA, and it was interesting to see, some of the survey results that they had. And one of the top five was the fact that associates are leaving firms, and not associates and other attorneys, but it was mostly the associates are leaving firms because of the technology environment. They found it frustrating, they found it archaic, and they stated it wasn't a good use of their time to work in an environment like that. So I've also heard that, incoming attorneys are asking more about, what does the technology environment look like? How does it get updated? And they're asking more of these things because they want to be efficient. They want to make sure that their time is being utilized as best as they possibly can. The other element to this is client service and satisfaction. We want to make sure our clients know what's going on, that we can communicate with them, we can share documents with them very easily, that we're working with them on every matter in a collective fashion, and it's not we go off and we do our own thing, we come back and say, here are the results. And I think clients are starting to demand more of that. Some are focused on operational excellence. We need better cash flow. We need to do things more efficiently. We need to be able to better manage our expenses, or sometimes it's the partner saying we're not making enough money, and that's driving that. So other times it's the competitive advantages. We have to look at this and say, how do we kind of get to a better place? We're really not as competitive, and that's probably the least likely out of all of these, for this. So I'm going to kind of move a little bit faster just because of the interest of time. I apologize for that. But so what's the status of doing nothing? I mean, what's the risk of doing nothing? And there's really, besides the opposite of the four different initiatives that I just mentioned, it's really competitive disadvantage and the difficulty catching up. I know law firms don't think that they compete with any of the other law firms. I don't think that that's true, but a lot of them do have that mindset is, we don't. People know us, they use us because they like us, and we're not competing with the others down the road. And I don't buy into that, but some do. The second is the difficulty of catching up. As AI advances, right, it's going to be more challenging, more difficult to catch up. So you're not going to be in a situation where it's like, hey, I can just go and buy a new product. If it's a research tool like the Thomson Reuters product that I had shown you before, yes, you can go out there, you can license that, and boom, you're caught up, because you don't have to really do anything besides use their product. You got to learn it. You got to, there's a learning curve associated with it. But other than that, really that's all that's involved. But if you're going to start really trying to drive AI through your firm and use your own firm's data to do that, which is where things are going with some of these document management products and other products in the market, you're going to have a difficult time. So those are the things that I'd be mindful of. It's not that easy just to kind of flip a switch and kind of catch up. So, all right, quick riddle. I'm going to run through this quickly. Last time I did this, the person, someone got it on the first clue that I gave, which I said, how did you do that? And they said, I just saw this on TikTok. So I'm not a fan of TikTok. But anyway, first thing is you can own it, but you can't use it. You can keep it, but you can't spend it. Once you've lost it, you never get it back. It's free and it's priceless. The answer is time. So we've always had this quandary, time or money. What's more important, right? I know in the legal industry, time is money. That's the analogy that's always given. If you go up to somebody and say, hey, you know what, you can die at the age of 70 instead of the age of 80, but you're going to get $10 million today. In order to do that, are you signing up for that or not? Obviously, it depends on the age of the person, but that's that scenario. And when you ask people in a more serious sense, the answer typically is they'll take time over money almost all the time, right? And that's really our focus. Our focus is in how do we make time either more valuable, or how do we become more efficient with the way that time is being used within a firm. So, and this is kind of the question I think we had earlier too, which is really, what is the value of it, right, at the firm? So, someone can go out there and save, they can do something more efficiently and they save 2 hours. But if they don't have anything to do for the 2 hours, what's the value of that? Or if there's 2 hours of being spent doing something else, that's the value of it, right? So you can get into these scenarios of the value of time is really dependent upon what else it's going to be used for. So I'm going to kind of go through the scenario with you. I'm going to kind of go through it quickly, which is going to be, focused on operational excellence. So I'm going to set the stage and just say, hey, we met with one of our clients. They expressed some interest in saying, hey, we've got to advance the firm and we want to become more profitable. That was the driving factor behind this, right? Not uncommon, hear it quite a bit, but they seem to be really, behind this initiative and say we want to move forward with it. So the first thing we did is say, let's set the stage for innovation, right? So what are the components that are involved in doing any type of innovation? And the first is the intelligence factor. So the intelligence is the ability to do this. Does someone in the firm or do the other related parties have the knowledge and the experience to bring about this innovative type of change? Then you have the technology, which is, do we have the technology in place, or can we get the technology in order to bring about the change? Then there's the operational piece. And this is the piece that I always put the strongest emphasis on, in the sense that most of the time people look at any type of innovation and saying, well, it's just technology. It's not. It's more operational. And more so than operational is it all focuses on the information. So the information kind of is the core, it's the hub of whatever it is that you do. If you don't have good information, bringing about any type of change is always going to be challenging. So managing your information, keeping it clean, keeping it accurate, those are the things that are going to make any type of innovative initiatives much more seamless for you. So here is the objective. So we meet with this firm, and we sat down and say, hey, what's realistic? What kind of change can we bring about to get the net profitability that you're looking for? And it wasn't a number, it was just we want to be more profitable. So we said, is it realistic to increase your efficiency rate 5%? Can we get the collection rate increased by 5%? And the net realization rate would, in those calculations would be a 9% increase. Well, those are big those are big asks. But in the situation that we had, we felt like, you know what, I think we can. I'm sorry, this is just for the associates of the firm, by the way, just so I can kind of set that stage, because the partners exclude themselves because there are exceptions to all rules. So they said the only way we can do this, let's focus in on the associates. So this is kind of a breakdown of what that firm looks like. So most firms have something similar to this, which is, they look at it and they say, and they usually, it's not broken into classes, it's broken into individual attorneys, but they go out there and say, all right, what's the projected billable hours for each person within the firm? What are their rates? And then at 100% utilization, what would we be generating? And no law firms ever have 100% utilization. I shouldn't say that. Very, very few have 100% utilization. So, but then, what you, the time that you spend isn't always billable. So that's our efficiency factor, to that. What actually gets billed, then actually what gets collected to get to our realization number. So these are kind of the numbers. You can look at them, but this is the analysis that we did. We focused in on the associates. And, one of the things that we had posed to them, which was kind of interesting, is the question of, how do you want to go about doing this? And, one of the attorneys had said, that's easy. We don't have to do any of this stuff. We're going to go in there. We're going to raise the hourly rate $25 for each associate. And then, we're going to get the net profit that we want, which would be about $392,000. So we were like, okay, you can, but, how far can you take that constant increase? Maybe there's a better way of doing that. Let's say we bring about that efficiency change, that 5%. Well, that 5% would net about about $530,000 if we were able to reach that mark. If we increase the collection rate, we'd be up another 510,000, right? So net to this whole thing is there's about $1 million of profit that if we do all these things right, we can get there. So is it worth it or is it not worth it? Well, they were interested and they said, yes, we wanted to move forward with this. It seems intriguing. And we did. So we said, well, all right, what do we need to do in order to make that happen? So these are the things that we focused in on. We said, we got to capture every hour that's worked. No doubt about it. We need a way to do that. We need to minimize any non-billable time. Take the non-billable time, reduce that, eliminate that, do something with that. Invoices, they have to go out 10 days by end of month. No questions asked. We've got to make sure that seamless things don't get held back. We need to share and set expectations with the clients by sending these forecasts. And then we also need to make sure that customers can pay us in the most, streamlined fashion possible, right? Make it easy for them. So we begin the journey. So we kind of go through this whole evaluation, selection, and implementation process. I'm going to kind of skip through some of this because I want to get to the end point because of, again, we're running a little tight on time, but so you need the right team. These are kind of the team members that are really required on the firm side. Then you also need the team on the vendor or the partner side, right? So whoever you're going to be working with to bring about this type of change, make sure that they're fully engaged and you have the right people there to work with your team to make sure that nothing falls between the cracks. So you're going to go through this evaluation process, and there's multiple steps, to this. These are the 4 different areas that you're going to kind of focus in on, which again, have management support, critically important. Make sure you have agreed upon scope. What are the things that we're really looking at? Go through your discovery process, do your assessment, right? Make sure you're doing that. You're doing a good gap analysis. You're really evaluating things properly. And then you get to the final selection and term negotiation. So we go through this whole process, and lo and behold, we select Centerbase as the product that we're going to use for this particular situation. And the reason for it was really these 4 areas of capability that it had. It's automated time capture, it's e-pre-billing, the Centerbase payments, which is their e-payment capabilities, the client portal, and task management. So those are the things that are going to, in culmination with each other, are going to help us get to that point in time. Then we go through, we do the implementation, and we go live. So we go live and we start the process, right? So as we start this process, we get into, first and foremost, automated time capture. To me, this is the layup. There's so much kind of, low-lying fruit that you can grab by just implementing some of these types of products to go out there and just recapture time that's just not being billed. And the reason is it's out of mind, out of sight, and it just doesn't get captured. And I know, attorneys are, well, oh no, I get back to my office and I make sure I capture that time. If I'm on the train or I'm going somewhere, I make sure I recapture it. And I'm like, yeah, do you? And is it accurate? And if it's not accurate, it brings the question as, that goes onto your timesheet. It goes on to the invoice. The customer receives it. They look at it. They know that conversation you had with them wasn't an hour. It was only 40 minutes or it was a half hour. And they question that. And then all of a sudden they start questioning everything else that was on that invoice. And they don't pay that invoice because they want to have a discussion. And then it gets into, let's discuss some type of write-off or write-down with it. So it's the trickle-down effect to these things, where by using tools like an automated capture product, I'm going to say automatic time capture product, you're taking that off the table. You're going out there and using technology to validate the accuracy of the information. And that's hugely important. So the second step is the pre-bill process. So we really have to look at this and saying, we won't want the attorneys wasting their time constantly reviewing invoices. Make it simple, make it easy for them to do that. This pre-billing approval process that Centerbase has, to me, is the best in the game. The way that you could set up your workflows with this, you can actually see the changes. You can go to multiple attorneys that can go out there and see it. You don't have to make copies. You don't have to, write up, notations on paper and hand it to somebody. It's all done electronically. It's there whenever they want to work with it. It's accessible, it's easy, and it definitely shortens the time frame of getting invoices out the door, which is one of the goals and objectives that we had. Centerbase payments for the payment process. We want it so our customers pay us when they want to pay us. They can pay us, immediately, or they can take their time, whatever that is. But it's easy for them to go in and electronically, online, go in and make payments to the firm. No excuses, which is a great thing. And then it's the client portal. And what I like about the client portal is everything is here that you can want to share with the client. So you can use this as a means of communicating with them, to set expectations for them to see, what's going on, what are the requirements, outstanding bills, different things like that. So it's more than just, hey, can get and pay a bill. It's the fact that you now have, all the information associated with a particular matter at your disposal that you can see at any time that you want. So takes those excuses off the table. And then the last part of this is the task management. And the task management, to me, is something that not enough firms are using this capability, is that you have the ability to go in there and to enter in notes, assign tasks, set up appointments, all that associated with a particular matter, that you can go into the matter and you can have visibility to that at any given time. So you can see at a moment's notice what is going on. So if you look at your firm, if you talk to the attorneys and they're giving you honest responses, they're going to tell you they spend a lot of time searching. They're searching for, what was that meeting, or where is this email, or where is this document, or all those types of things. Those are the things that you got to take away, take those excuses away, and make it easier for them to work and not have to deal with that. So we went through all of that exercise. The end result, well, the efficiency rate was only up by 2%. Collection rate was up 3%. Overall, our realization rate went up by 4%. So there's still a net savings. I shouldn't say net savings, a net income increase for just the associates for $500,000. That's pretty impressive, right? So what does that look like in the ROI? So how do you recoup that in the ROI calculation? Well, if you look at it and you say, okay, so the services, let's call them, $100K for services, another 84,000 for licensing, you're at 180 something thousand for year one. So you're still up 325,000, 324,000. And then it only increases in the subsequent years, to that, assuming that you don't increase those numbers. And you will increase those numbers over time if the software that you've implemented is being managed properly. And when I say that, it's not just put the software in place. It's bring about the behavioral changes that are needed. It's not just give them a training on it. It's train them, hold their hand, enforce, retrain them, hold their hand, and enforce. It's a a cyclical thing that you need to keep them on par. If you do that, you will get those types of results. If you don't, you're going to get them frustrated with another product that they're not sure how to work with. So that's the whole concept behind this application life cycle management. You really need to make sure you decide to go with a product like Centerbase, maintain vendor relationships, stay current, know what's coming out, what are they doing, and take advantage of those things. Don't just sit back and say, hey, they came out with a new release. Well, use the functionality and the capabilities in the new release. Know what that is. Have somebody within your organization that has the responsibility to have data governance, somebody that is your custodian for this particular application, for the data within the application itself. And then make sure that you have that continuous training, is make sure that everybody is aware of what this is and how it works. Common mistakes. Following another firm. I cringe every time I hear, hey, I think we're going to go with this product because the firm down the street is using it. So, I call it the Sperry factor. No two law firms are the same. I don't care if they're the same size, same practice area, same area. They're just not. It just doesn't work. Because something works for one firm doesn't mean it's going to work for your firm. Don't fall down that rabbit hole. It's just not a good place to go. The old not realizing what you don't know. A lot of times, it's simple. Yeah, I've done this before and I know what I'm doing and so on. Maybe, but put the time into it and know what you don't know for sure before you make that type of decision. Make sure you have the right people in the decision-making process. Who are the right people? It's management support, managing partner, executive committee, those types of individuals need to be involved in this. And think about this more as an operational challenge and not a technology challenge. And having your director of IT involved in this is less important than having the firm administrator, executive directors, or whoever oversees the operations involved and driving this effort. Don't underestimate the time and the cost to these things. Know what that is and make sure that you're prepared for that. Plan it out, make sure you have a good direction as to where you're going and have the proper budget support. So those are the things that you need to have to avoid these mistakes. Tips and takeaways: focus on information and operations, not tech. Don't underestimate the complexity of the desktop. Any changes to the desktop come with added complexity and challenges that you're going to have. If you don't know, get help. Make sure your change management government is enforced, document what you're doing, the reasons why you're doing it. You need the right team to win. Make sure you get the right people engaged, committed to doing anything that you're going to do, and avoid those common mistakes that I just mentioned. So I know we're at time, so I'm not going to do another poll here, but I was always curious as to, has anything changed in the hour of me rambling on and telling you about some of this information? So I'm going to pause there, Diana, and I'll kick it off. If there's some questions, I'm happy to answer.
I put the poll up so folks can answer, and we had a question around what exactly is considered a technology roadmap.
So a technology roadmap is, first is a point in time of where are we at right now and where do we want to go? And then it's how are we going to get there? So what does that look like? That's everything from what your technology environment is. What are your challenges that you're faced with? You're having problems collecting. Are you having problems getting your attorneys to enter time? What are those things? What's in place? And then what are you going to do to change that, right? So it may be we have to find another product. It may be we have another product and we're putting that in place so that we know where we're going once we can afford or have the time in order to get there. So it's really your plan. It's the plan of, how do you kind of get from point A to point B? Our maturity model is another term that we've used, as far as what that looks like.
Thank you, Paul. And we had a 56% to change and 44% to keep status quo.
Okay. Oh, great. I appreciate your feedback. It helps me. I hope some of this information was helpful for you. And if there's more questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I'll let everybody get on with their day.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. We appreciate it so much.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Yep.
Goodbye.